I poured all of myself into this, as a, I've long been a huge fan of the action genre, and this is kind of my humble offering, to a genre I love so much. I wanted to infuse it with some culture and social resonance. I along with, some cool kicks, punches, and the odd elbow here or there. But, I felt a huge responsibility to not only, the kind of mythology that this story is based on, but, these incredible actors that, came at a really trying time in history and gave me their all. First and foremost, I think it's a revenge film about faith. The beauty of religion, particularly in an uneducated kind of populace where, the iconographies, the stories can be incredible teachers and inspirations and touch points for children, but at the same time how it can be monetized and weaponized. Particularly in, well, everywhere in the world, to be honest. So there's that, and then there's also, the idea of, the caste system in India, from the greatest action films like, Game of Death with Bruce Lee, where he has to work his way up the pagoda to fight, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and that amazing sequence at the end, where the bosses get tougher and bigger and badder. I took that and I was like, wouldn't that be amazing to kind of, start in this, like, this club that this young man has to infiltrate, where he's in this windowless hellhole, in this kitchen, serving dishes to the elite above him, and then he gets to the next layer where he's, in the land of kings, which is the name of the club, King's Club, and the next layer above that is, where the man-made gods are, and he must challenge those men too, the untouchables, the true untouchables. So, a lot of the tropes of the genre I try to, kind of bake in and kind of give different context to with this story. Yeah, I think people might be surprised when they see me drenched in blood, biting a knife into someone's neck. They're like, God, Dev Patel's got a really sick brain. No, I grew up, I remember the first film that really captivated me. I snuck downstairs and watched Bruce Lee and Enter the Dragon through the banister way past my bedtime. And I was utterly enthralled by this man with a similar pigment to me, dark hair, and he captivated me. I plastered his pictures all through my bedroom, and then that became my obsession with the action genre, from, Jet Li, Jackie Chan, Donnie Yen, Sammo Hung, then the Indonesian guys that did the raids, and then I got introduced to the Korean cinema, who, they do revenge better than anyone. To take those kind of influences plus, the kind of Bollywood cinema that my parents were also watching, and kind of like mash these things together to kind of make this, kind of bombastic, strange cultural cocktail, which is me. Slightly awkward and unruly at times too, but with a lot of heart. I think that's what this film is. At its core, it's an anthem for the underdog, and the everyman, who has to, face so much adversity, so much failure, and, supported by other underdogs, is only when he realizes his true potential. The training montage was, it was my tip to, those legendary training montages, obviously from Rocky, and I wanted to do a sort of musical piece because music is so big in the Indian culture, and I was like, I obviously didn't want to do the dancing around a tree Bollywood thing or what we've done in Slumdog. And a very dear friend of mine who also worked on this film as a producer, Raghuveer Joshi, he's a huge Indian classical music fan, and I'm into hip hop and all that kind of stuff. And once I started understanding the intricacies and the kind of commitment of this art form, which is, I wouldn't say it's a dying art form, but let's just say, it's not getting the kind of real credit it deserves in a new burgeoning TikTok kind of world, And I was like, wouldn't it be amazing? In India, they call it a jugalbandi, which is like a call and answer. In jazz, it's like, riffing with each other. And I was like, wouldn't it be amazing to do a kind of like hour training sequence to be with this maestro this guy they call Ustad, which means maestro, Zakir Hussain. He toured with Ravi Shankar, the Beatles. He came down quarantined for 2 weeks and played the tabla ferociously for 3 days. And I'm playing the bags, he's tearing up the drums, and we kind of have this wordless training sequence where he speaks with me through his instrument, like R2-D2 in a way. So there's a few jokes in there, and he kind of teaches this man rhythm and to tune his instrument. And we also infuse that sequence is when it goes from a singular call to action to something. He's fighting for a nation at that point. And it's one of my favorite sequences. It took us months and months to get right. I wanted to create an action hero that, wasn't like bursting out of his suit. He had to be a believable waiter, in this place. So, the idea was like to try and get as close to Bruce Lee shredded as possible. So it was lettuce, sweet potato, and salmon 3 times a day, every day, for months, while the crew was having the most delicious Indonesian food. And I would wake up in the morning and, be doing all of that action choreography, hitting the rubber bands, doing my best Jane Fonda. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. But yeah, he's kind of hopefully a more attainable, more realistic, authentic look at what, an underdog Avenger would look like. Not someone that, is going to take on 100 men and come out unscathed, has the perfect quip for every moment. He's a man dealing with extreme trauma, and he fails and tries and fails again. And it's only when he finds other underdogs like himself that, can believe in him and build him up that he really, finds his true potential. The film is an ode to my parents and my ancestry in a way, and, at its core, it's about the earth, it's about roots, it's an ode to an incredible mother as well, and how far someone will go to avenge someone he loves so dearly, his best friend, his teacher, his idol, for me, I just think I think there's a bit in it for everyone, really, but more than anything, I hope people are engaged in it and inspired by it. It's not like your usual action flick that, just starts with action and keeps going. There is plotting and building and a world build, and it's pensive, and then it absolutely explodes in the second act, and it's absolute mayhem. And I think, we got this huge reception at this festival, South by Southwest. People were whooping and hollering and throwing popcorn at the screen, and I'd never seen anything like it. So I think it's a fun film.
Dev is extremely detail-oriented. He is uncompromising in creative vision, and he sees things through even when he's faced with odds that most people would totally curl up and die if they were facing. Obstacles at every turn, Dev doing an entire fight sequence with a broken hand, Dev shooting footage on his iPhone in a bathtub of a hotel, Dev arguing with governmental bureaucracy. I mean, this was some hardcore pioneering it took to make this film. Dev plays a character named Kid in the credits. He's really pretty much anonymous in the movie. He's sort of even talked about by the villains as the quintessential nobody. Sort of a derogatory term for the ubiquitous condition of someone in a powerless position in a fictional city in India. We're meant to connect with him on a really primal level because we both recognize the schism between being perceived as a nobody by culture, but feeling the humanity of being a suppressed somebody. We're all familiar with Dev Patel from Slumdog Millionaire and the work he's created after that. He's shown us as a performer that he can be vulnerable, that he can be loving, that he can fall down and get up again. But we've never quite seen him in a position where he is forced to almost be operating on a superhero level. I think audience members are going to recognize Dev, the lovable, essentially child actor from Slumdog Millionaire, grown up and on a bloodthirsty crusade against the hypocrisy and oppression of an entire society.
He doesn't need no introduction as an actor. He's one of the greatest talents out there, I believe. And directing was something that he's new to, but as a person, he's quite energetic, quite charming. So all that kind of filtered through when it came to directing. He had a lot of things they had to learn. So one of the things that I noticed constantly is that he would meet with the heads of departments, whether it's a DOP, whether it's production design, and hear them out, learn everything like a sponge, and then he would push, influence them with his own ideas and elevate their work, And he constantly does that, which is something really valuable as a director, as a person. So essentially, during the whole process, it sort of evolved from what the concept was, and then his sort of leadership and ideas to push everyone to elevate the work was something very special to see. Kid grew up in the forest. We're just calling it a general forest, and because there are people of the forest who are full of love, compassion. The bond that he shared with his mother is beautiful. And like any child growing up, all he knew was his village, all he knew was with the love of his mother. And suddenly one day, that's all taken away by this group of men that through threats, through convictions, through force, removes this entire village from the forest because they want to grab that land and make something out of it, right? For whatever reasons. It's greed. But it's done very forcefully, and everything, his mother, his life, the forest, the environment that he grew up in is taken away from him. And that sets him on a path of revenge. He's the ultimate underdog. At the same time, he also fights for the voiceless, the marginalized. And we've taken these characteristics or what we know of or read about from the monkey god, Hanuman, who symbolizes strength, courage, compassion, and kindness. Kid is an embodiment of that. So when he's as he's on his path of revenge, he's also at the same time a protector of people, protector of the voiceless and the powerless, right? So there is this huge, charming aspect to Kid that audience will really love. So Hanuman is a god in the Hindu mythology that is half monkey, half human. He symbolizes strength, courage, protection, kindness. His the storybook that the mother reads to Kid, she instills the story of Hanuman into her child. That Hanuman was this little monkey that wanted to reach for the sun, and he thought it was a juicy mango and wanted to go touch it, which he did, which is a courageous thing to do because it also represents ambition. But the gods punished him for doing that. It's kind of the Icarus story. And he got burnt by touching this really bright burning sun. And he's punished which is a representation of society or power, or power and greed, to say you stay in your lane. You're not meant to aspire for better things. You're not meant to reach for the stars, reach for the sun. You stay in your line and do your work, right? So Hanuman represents the opposite of that. So he's always fighting to aspire to be something. He's constantly defying. He's constantly pushing boundaries. So we took this philosophy from the mythology and then gave it a spin. We wanted to tailor it down to the simplest path of what a child would read a Hanuman story and what that could instill in him and what he could become. And that's Kid.
The action topped the best action films you see around. So when he did that, in my opinion, when he was able to act in these sequences that were so well choreographed, had such fluidity, had so much character to the action, I know that just as an action film and as a revenge film, this thing is going to be huge. What I'm really drawn to in this film is the theme of revenger becoming an avenger. So, you know, this is a story that gets us on board emotionally with the drive of vengeance, which is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful force in film. And it does it so well. He gets you on board with such on such a personal and emotional mission, and with a character of such humility that all we want to do is see him succeed. The tone of the violence and the action is obviously gritty and cinematically beautiful. I'm struck with how many shots that feel like one take, that feel so fluid and visceral. And then Dev, as a physical performer, as a fighter, has such a unique action quality to his movement. It's really wonderful to watch, and that's such a surprise because I can't do that. Dev has created a very distinct action vibe and a world that is untapped from an action movie perspective, and a vibe that is so many things. It's beautiful, it's tragic, it's violent, but above all, what Dev has managed to package it in is something that feels really cool. But not at the risk of our emotional investment in the character and the story. For me and for Monkey Paw, you know, the idea of representation and stories that have brown people in them and are big genre stories in a way we haven't seen is always going to be, you know, front and center for us. Not because of some kind of affirmative action, but because those are the movies we really are longing for. This was a film that I felt like needed to be in the theaters and is screaming to be in the theaters because, like I said, it's one of these films that when you watch it with a bunch of people, you're going to hear their sounds, you're going to hear their screams, you're going to hear their laughs, you're going to hear their cheers, you're going to hear them cry, and you're all going to walk away feeling awesome for it. When people watch Monkey Man, I know for a fact that there's going to be a lot of, oh, ho, what? Yo, no. Oh! There's going to be a lot of that. It's got incredible action. It's got amazing heart. It's got a fascinating message. It's got a vibe like you've never seen. And it's got Dev Patel like you've never seen him. And he's a movie star. And he's one of the great directors in a first-time film that I've seen. So you gotta be there in the theaters with the big sound, with the big explosions, get the visceral violence the way Dev and I want you to get it. That's the way to do it.